Good evening. Welcome and thank you everyone for coming to the very special event that we're hosting this evening, Peace in the Hood, working with gang members to end the violence. I'm Provost of College 9 and College 10, Flora Liu, and it's a pleasure to see you all on a rainy Thursday. I would like to start by thanking the many organizations who co-sponsored this remarkable event tonight. El Centro, the African American Resource and Cultural Center, the AARCC, Barrios Unidos, and we also receive funding from the Alumni Association. I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Dr. Craig Haney. He is a distinguished professor of psychology and the director of the Legal Studies program here at UC Santa Cruz. He takes his bachelor degree from University of Pennsylvania and his master's, doctorate, and JD from Stanford University. With degrees in both law and psychology, Dr. Haney has devoted his career to exploring the psychology of society's most violent criminals and documenting the devastating effects of imprisonment, solitary confinement, and capital punishment. Dr. Haney has testified before the US Senate and the California legislature. Just as an example, his testimony in a 1999 federal court case led to a landmark decision in Texas declaring that super maximum security prisons, where people are held in solitary confinement for 23 or more hours a day, are unconstitutional. His research and analysis was cited several times last year in the majority opinion when the US Supreme Court upheld a ruling ordering California to release 46,000 prisoners to relieve overcrowding. Not only is Professor Haney a leading scholar producing groundbreaking and impactful scholarship, he is an accomplished teacher. Just to give you a few examples, he recently won the Excellence in Teaching Award, the most prestigious pedagogical accolade on this campus. He was also recently awarded the UC Presidential Chair, offered to our most distinguished faculty in the UC system, that provides funds to develop undergraduate and graduate curricula and to support research and intellectual life through seminars, colloquia, and other events. Literally just before the program started, we were talking about perhaps how his presidential chair can help us support more events like this. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Craig Haney.
Thank you, Flora, for that very generous introduction. I know you didn't come here tonight to hear from me, so I'm going to try to be brief. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here, and I mean that in the deepest and most sincere way. I've known Nane Alejandrez for quite a long time, and I just tonight met Akil Bashar, and I can't tell you how important the work is that they are all doing. I want to just say three quick things to you. The events that have been taking place in the world around us, I think, underscore a very important lesson. And although they are in many important ways unrelated to one another, there is a basic fundamental way in which they are connected. Disenfranchised, marginalized, angry, excluded people need to be brought into our society, not further excluded from it. We cannot and we will not bomb, shoot, police, waterboard, or imprison our way out of violence and conflict. We have to figure out ways to make peace, to make connections, to be inclusive rather than exclusive. And even when we are tested at times like this, we have to recognize that not in Paris, not in San Bernardino, not in Los Angeles, and not in Santa Cruz does repression and oppression and more force and more violence solve these problems. And unless we recognize that, I fear we are going to continue to be plagued by what we have been plagued by in very vivid and dramatic ways over the last several weeks. What you are going to hear tonight helps us understand a way of thinking about these issues in a fundamentally different way. The second thing I want to tell you about is that the way in which this work that these men are doing, men and women are doing, is personal to me. I see these problems at the last possible stage when almost nothing can be done. I see people who are sitting in solitary confinement cells and security housing units all around the country who have gotten caught up in violence and conflict as young, really most of them as young boys, not even young men. Young boys before they could possibly understand the implications of what it was they were signing on to and where it was all going to lead. And I see them when they know, when they finally realize in their hearts and their minds where it's led and what it's cost them and how many years they've gone without talking to or hugging their children or their loved ones. And they look back on it and there is almost nothing that can be done. And at the last minute, I have a kind of a first aid kit where we try to get them out of solitary confinement after they've wasted 20 or 30 or sometimes even 40 years sitting in these isolation cells. Because there wasn't anybody in their life like the people you're going to hear from tonight to show them a different and a better way. Or in a death penalty case, when the very best I can do is get someone a life rather than a death sentence, which means they're going to spend the rest of their life in prison, which they so much want rather than to face execution. But had there been someone in their life earlier, had there been someone in their life who could turn their path in a different direction, then I wouldn't have been having that conversation with them and we wouldn't have been trying to save their life at the last and final stage of the criminal justice process. And so what you're going to hear about tonight is so critically important because it helps so many people avoid such horrible, destructive criminal justice outcomes. And it is the only way pathway forward in criminal justice reform. Yes, we've got to make the system fair. Yes, we've got to reduce the number of people who are incarcerated and all of that. And I work on that day and night every day. But none of that will make much difference if we don't figure out ways, as you're going to hear about tonight, to prevent people from going into this system in the first place. And the third and final thing I want to say is that all of us here, as part of a university, need to be ancillary and support services to this effort. We cannot lead this effort. The effort really can only be led by the people who know these issues the best, the people whose lived experiences teach them what to do and how to do it. Yes, we can provide advice when we're asked for it. Yes, we can provide some concepts when concepts are needed, some academic support if that's necessary. But the real hard work on these issues, with our help, and we do need to help, the real hard work is being done by the people that you're going to hear from tonight, and we need to support them in every possible way. So it's an honor for me to introduce Nane, who is going to introduce Akil. Nane Alejandrez is a local hero in Santa Cruz. He started many years ago, decades ago, Barrios Unidos, working on the ground to try to address these problems in our community. He's one of ours. We can claim him as one of our students. And he has had just an enormously successful life as somebody who is a peacemaker, who knows how to bring people together, who knows how to bring diverse groups of people, opposing groups of people, warring groups of people together, and get them to sit and work for common purpose. So we are fortunate to have him in our community, and we are honored to have him with us tonight. Nane, please take the stage.
I call this my stomping grounds, you know. Seems like every other month I'm over here, so I love you guys. Yeah, and I told you the first time you asked me to come, I'll continue to come. Let me say a few words before I introduce our guest speaker for tonight. You know, Craig says that, you know, the work that he does and the work that we do on the ground, there's no difference. I see no difference. You know, my oldest son, the first time he got sent to Pelican Bay, he did 7 years in the SHU. He got out probably 5 months later, he was back in the SHU. He couldn't do, I didn't understand the SHU. I didn't understand, I knew about prisons, but I didn't know how terrible those conditions were. Although I had gone over there and visited him to class and all that. So he went back and he did 15 years in the SHU straight. And because of the work of Craig and others, finally he was able to come home. But he was never the same again. Never he's a great artist. I'm glad to say that there's a book that just came out today, and his artwork is published in there. So he's a published artist. To look something to when he gets out, because right now he's doing 17 years. He'll be out when he's 56 years old. Now, he went in when he was 17, except for those little periods of time. So you can imagine, and then being not only in a prison, but being in a torture chamber, that he drew his cell, such a fine artist, he drew his cell in detail that we created a cell, a prison cell, that got so much publicity and people wanted to see it that we had to put it on a trailer. And so now we have this prison cell trailer, a replica of the security housing unit. And I took a keel in there and a couple, and they were ready to get out real quick because it has that kind of effect. We had it here. And it's taken so much that we have someone from the University of Georgia that's coming to do a research on the effectiveness of that prison cell to educate people. It's an incredible tool. So, Craig, from my family, gracias, thank you for the work that you do. You know, he's my hero. You know. Another person that's here tonight is John Brown Childs. John and I have been walking these halls for years and years. You know, when I want credibility with the administration, I said, well, I'm bringing Dr. John Brown Childs. I put that doctor on top, you know, piece of cake and everything. And so we were we were meeting with a warden in one of the institutions. And he says, well, it's good that you guys are coming, but I don't want none of this feel-good stuff. You know, oh, I said, oh, no, we're not about feel-good stuff. We're gonna make them feel so bad, they're gonna go out there and want to stab each other, you know. And so we call them Warden Feel-Good, you know. But everybody can change. Warden Feel-Good, we're gonna see tomorrow. And I'm taking my brothers in to see Warden Feel-Good. Because Warden Feel-Good is feeling pretty good about what's going on now, you know. But it was his idea, huh? So he says, we need to have this. Oh, yeah, of course. Well, it's your idea. John and I will just follow your idea. John started a class called Transcommunalities. It's now going on its third year that it's been run by inmates. And these guys, relatives, we call them relatives. These relatives have made the class even harder. And so we have over 400 peacemakers in Soledad. What we're doing tomorrow at Salinas Valley State Prison is we're breaking ground. There's never been a group like Akil and ourselves going in at the same time. Matter of fact, just a few months ago, they had their first ban on the yard in 16 years. Unfortunately, that my grandson sits on that yard, so I can't go in, but some of the representatives will go. These three hats represent 300 years of prison time. If you look at it, 27 years, 29 years, 40 years, 20 years, 15 years, 18 years, 32 years, you add them up, it's over 300 years on reality check. Reality check, they want to come home. So they're doing everything they can to make it happen. But if we don't have people like ourselves going in there, it's not going to happen. And then we have to prepare as students, and how do we take care of them? So this is where Akil comes in. We've been working, between the two of us, we got about 80 years, trying to work on peace, never give up, you know. And, you know, he wrote this book, Peace in the Hood, and, you know, the title itself says a lot. And you know what, I'm gonna be just straight up, that I wish there would be more students of color here. And there'd be more black students, African American students. I don't know what happened, but I'm gonna call it. Sometimes we get up here and we get lost. And I always say, never forget where you come from, because we're dependent on you. And I'll just leave it at that, you know, because I have so much respect for this group of people, my friends, my relatives that are coming tonight. And Akil has saved many lives, has probably saved the lives of many students, relatives that are fortunate enough to be here. That's the kind of man he is. So, with much respect, with much love, big welcome to Akil Bashar, my home.
How's everybody doing? Could you do me a favor? Could you look to the person at your left and at your right and basically tell them, I'll see you at the top? You know, let me say this, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to have you listen to my few words. I came out of the 60s movement, hardcore, proud of it, don't apologize for it. And we lived on the college campus, Most of the revolutionary leaders who created the movements that you see today came off of those college campuses. You know, the role of a student on any campus is to acquire that knowledge. But knowledge is useless if you don't have the enthusiasm to flip the switch, okay? And with the acquisition of knowledge comes responsibility. Comes responsibility to change the dynamics of what's going on in a given societal arena, in a given venue, etc. You know, it's amazing when we look at and try to understand the dynamics of real leadership. Most leaders do not understand that their role is temporary. Their job is temporary. The role of a real leader is to train those that come behind him or her how to take his or her place. And we've been very ill-effective in that. Too many of us want to hold on and relish in that qualm that we have been given. You know, let me tell you something. Nobody gets out of this life alive. If you know them, let me know, because I would like to have a conversation with them. Okay. I was listening to Dr. Craig, outstanding words. He's right on target. Everything the man was saying. See, it takes courage to stand up and say and do the things that need to be said. Steel sharpens steel, but in the process, you get what? You get friction. Anything that's of value and worth anything is going to take some resistance. The higher you go in life, the more resistance you're going to reach. So I applaud his words. I applaud what he is trying to do. That leads me to Brother Nani. Me and this soldier have been on the battleground for decades doing this work. Do I say that with a badge of honor? No, I don't. Because the fact that we had to be out there for decades doing the type of work we do means that there's flaws in the program, means that we have to make sure that we have institutions, we have templates, we have structures, we have infrastructure in place that when we are called, we know that the process will continue to move forward. This type of work and the work that we do is not a game. It's not a game. You don't see the results. You don't get the pats on the back. Your honor comes from that family that you know you've saved, from that young son that knows that his father is still at home because he didn't get his brains blown out because he had some type of systematic structure to operate from. That mother that knows her daughter is with the family because there were certain things in place. We're the ones out there 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning while people are at home drinking lemonade and watching horror movies. Well, we're into horror movies. And we wear that with a badge of honor. Brother Nani has done some outstanding work and continues to do outstanding work. And as we move forward in the process, as we move forward to understand what the objective, what our roles is in life, we have got to partner. We have got to ally. We have got to parallel ourselves. It is not going to be an individual effort that is going to change the dynamics of what's going on in society today. It is going to take a multidisciplinary collaboration of people who have respect for each other, who respect each other's discipline, and understand they might have to sacrifice for the bigger objective of where they're trying to go at the end of the day. All of us in life are going to be known for one thing, and that's the legacy, that's the signature we place before we leave here. That's all you're going to be remembered by. What did that individual bring to the table? And that's why it was so imperative that I wrote Peace in the Hood. I didn't have the time, I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the wherewithal at the time. But it's probably been the best thing that I could have ever did, because if I'm called tomorrow, I know that I did my job in leaving a template, an instructional blueprint in place for those to come behind me. And that's what true leadership is. I want to say to you guys, I really applaud you for being here. I applaud this school for being or taking the type of progressive action, the strategical thinking process to move things forward. So why don't you give the school, yourself, Nandi, everybody that put this together a big round of applause. You know? Lastly, I want to say I brought a couple of my team members. These individuals have gotten my back. They do outstanding work. They support me when I'm not at 100%. They fill in the gaps. They put me in check when I need to be put in check. So would you guys please stand up so they can acknowledge you? Yeah. You know, when I look at the students on a given campus, especially those students that come from dysfunctional environments, students that come from a certain degree of adversity, I'm always asked, what is my role as a student, and what can I do to show the level of appreciation for the fact that I've made it out, that I've been fortunate to step out and achieve a level of greatness that others might not have. My response is always, because you understand the dynamics of the culture, because you understand the dynamics of the dysfunctionality, because you understand what the cultural dynamics are within that community that you serve, your role is to go back to that community, with a degree of humbleness, with a degree of equality, and use the fundamental skills and the education that you have acquired in an institution like this to better that community. See, we have got to understand in life, we cannot go up pushing others down. The only way we ascend to a level of greatness is to raise people with us in the process. It's very lonely at the top when you're the only one there. So the students who, for the lack of a better way of saying it, have made it out, your job is to go back and, most importantly, put in place a blueprint, a template, an instructional manual for those who haven't made it out. You've got to equip them and equip that community with the capability of that individual or those individuals within that community being able to follow a game plan, an action plan, similar to what you did because you were one of the ones that made it out. Now, some of you don't come from dysfunctional communities. A lot of you in here don't. but that doesn't mean you can't assist in the process. We cannot work in this society on an individual basis. If this society is going to survive, if it's going to function, if we're going to be here in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it has to be a collaborative effort that moves the process forward. That collaborative effort has to be driven by systems of instruction that move the process as opposed to the individual or the individual motivation of a given person, etc. Many other students I know want to return to the communities and really want to put in some work. You know what happens a lot of times is we gain a certain degree of knowledge, and then we want to go back and show what we know. We want to go back and show what we've acquired. But the real leadership or the real leader is the one that moves the student or the process or the people that they're trying to move forward. They move them forward, and when those people acquire that level of success, you will not even know that they had a leader because they have been trained through the process to be self-determined and self-reliant and have the ability to self-motivate. A real leader does not even want to be seen in the process. So, those students who want to return to the community and do work and bring that positive change, you need to go back and you need to set an example. And let me tell you this, it's going to be a sacrifice that you're going to have to make in that process. When you raise others and you attempt to change the dynamics of a set of dysfunctionality, you have got to realize that it might be a day, it might be a week, it might be a month, etc. It might be a long time. Let me move forward and show you a quick video, and then I'm going to really get into the book and talk about what happened, what this work does, why we're doing the work. But I think these little 2 short videos will give you kind of an overview of what is represented in the book and what we stand for. So if I could get the videos up played, please.
Make no doubt about it, this was a civil war.
The streets is just sucking up our youth.
It's sad.
There's only one thing I was able to give my son, and that was a headstone.
Gang crime is completely out of control.
The LAPD had thrown their hands up and they didn't know what to do.
We had to come up with something we had never seen before. And that was forming a collaboration with some of the most violent and evil rivals in the streets of Los Angeles.
We're supposed to be the elite peacekeeping team.
If we're gonna grow this thing, we all gotta do this thing together.
All the leaves are brown.
A person that has a license to operate is a liaison between rival gangs and law enforcement.
And the sky
It's front lines, man. It's crazy out here. You gotta watch your back.
Did we turn our community into a war zone like this? If we don't change our kids in our communities, no one will. Most people don't give a damn.
You can stop those wars because people listen to you.
They were from that community. They were the most valuable players.
I'll be safe and warm.
They have been there in the middle of the night after we've had a shooting.
You be safe, brother.
If I were in LA.
You learn the most from the teacher that demands the most from you. So I'm gonna push you, because I know it's inside of you.
When I was growing up, I didn't have nobody to help me. That's what I'm trying to do with you now.
You're gonna meet kids, you're gonna lose kids.
Check your mirror, put your seatbelt on, go ahead and make a right turn.
Went to the church. Yes, I did.
In 1992, we had 1,300 murders. 3 years, we've had under 300.
People depend on us.
So it's 1,000 kids out there that's walking around that I can say, you help. LA be the model for other parts of the world. I really believe that.
So one thing I would like someone to say about me when that time comes is that I was man enough to stand up for change.
Somebody help me.
We are one team. We are one team.
Circumstance, what we would have done is 2 or more of our group would have gotten up, separated them, and had one just separate them as best as we could, using the environment around us, taking through the door, and see where we could go from there, and that would be.
We would assess what the situation was notice if they have anything that looks like it might be dangerous, weapons or anything like that. Since we knew one of the people involved in the situation, we would have split our team in half, and two of us would have went right for Donnie and tried to get his attention away from the other guy, and the other two would have worked with the other person, and we would have tried to pull Donnie aside, and since he was so close to the door, out the door, so we could separate the two.
I thought it was important also to be able to talk to him in a calm voice, repeating his name, repeating Donnie, just because of the relationship that they and you have. For example, they'd be able to talk you down enough to be able to bring you and sit you down. We will not make a move until both sides are calm enough to either sit together to squash it or to go away and come back to a different day. For example, if we thought that maybe they couldn't deal with it on the spot, we'd agree to disagree, go your own way, have one person, this case Damon, would talk with Donnie over the next few days, and then the other person talk with the gentleman. What was your name again, sir?
Nico.
With Nico, and then if they come to an agreement, they can come back together, get the team back together, and then we form a circle and hash it out.
And if towards the end, if there was no solutions, just to avoid any physical confrontation, it'd be just best to keep them separated, just for protection. Thank you, guys.
Give you an overview and talk about the movement. What we did originally, there was so much violence going on. And let me qualify by saying this. We're gang specialists, bar none. But we knew that if we were going to create causative change in our communities, we couldn't just dam the process. We couldn't just stop the blood flow. We had to create a holistic mechanism that was able to engage all types of violence, domestic violence, community violence, person-to-person violence, etc. And then once we were able to dam that violence, we had to create a process of changing the dysfunctional thinking of individuals who were perpetuated to use that process because they thought that this was a given to them and they had the right to use it. Once we were able to change the psychological structure or the psychological direction, we realized that we had to bring resources to the table to stabilize that thinking process. Once we were able to stabilize it in the short term, we had to create a holistic infrastructure that was going to be able to keep it stabilized in the long term, finally ending with the ability for that community to re-raise itself because it brings into place all the componentry that creates a self-determining community. That was a huge order and it was a process. So we realized that gang intervention by itself was not going to effectively cause the change that we needed. We had to mature gang violence into comprehensive community. We had to take gang intervention and mature that into comprehensive community intervention. And to date, no arrogance meant, we have trained over 75,000 peacekeepers worldwide. We have people on the ground all over the world, in Africa, in Asia, Sweden, etc. We have them in community after community here. And the process was to create a network of individuals who were trained, who had the discipline, who had the wherewithal, who had the expertise to be able to go out, put a model in place, and then be able to replicate that model in dysfunctional community after community. One of the things we realized early in the process was if we were going to be perceived as professionals, we couldn't say that we were just individuals who had 20 years on the ground with the homies. That wasn't going to cut it. That is your road to get into the process. That develops your what we call your LTO or your license to operate. We clearly understood that we were going to have to create a dynamic to where we could show that there were operational protocol in place, that there were behavior standards in place, that there were certain fundamental standard operating procedures and standard operating guidelines. So that brought us to developing the comprehensive PCITI, which is the Professional Community Intervention Training Institute. All of our people are practitioners. We are on the ground. We do this work. So we were able to use that expertise and we were able to use that credibility in the community. Our first class, we brought over 99 neighborhoods together, and we had some of the worst shot callers up in that room. And I'm gonna tell you, it was so tense in there, you could cut it, that tenseness with a knife. And when we first brought everybody together, just to get them to walk through the door was a major victory. And we looked at each other once we got them in the door and said, okay, what the hell are we gonna do? Because I mean, it was tense. But what we did was develop a process where individuals, through an 18-week period, were able to sit with each other, were able to eat with each other, were able to think together. See, our training institute is practitioner-based. They go through scenario after scenario, so they got to work in teams, and we put adversary teams together. Adversaries from neighborhoods, we put them on certain teams, and those teams compete with the other teams to understand and learn the process. So after 18 weeks of this, after 18 weeks of hardcore engagement, after 18 weeks of being locked up with each other, for the lack of a better way of saying it, it was very hard for them to go back to the same community and destroy one another. See, most people who want to destroy, who dehumanize, do it because of perpetuated self-hate, especially when you see black on black, Latino, etc., violence towards one another. It's very easy for me to dehumanize somebody that looks just like me, that thinks like me, that acts like me, when I have a perpetuated self-hate and I don't give a damn about myself. This is the environment we're dealing in. Now, we have to branch that out. We had to create the template, so not only were we effective in dealing with gang violence, but we were able to go in to different communities and create what we call LTOs with community and the municipalities. We were able to go in and train law enforcement and public safety officials in terms of what the best dynamic would be to go into a given community and get a better outcome. We were able to create templates that could be replicated in these given venues where people had a reference point, a starting point, to at least start the process and try to build something from that. Then what we knew we had to do was put together the template. There was no template for this type of work, none, nowhere. There was not an instructional book, there was not an instructional sheet or anything. So that was the whole concept behind Peace in the Hood, was to put that together. Now, one of the things Peace in the Hood does do, Peace in the Hood basically took my 40 plus years on the street and took those given situations that we were in, and we open each book up with one of those situations, and from there we will build the process. We show you how mediation was built from an actual scenario. We show you how community engagement was built. We show you how rumor control was built, so you have a clear understanding when the book is read that you will be able to duplicate and replicate the process. Where did the work actually come from? Where did the expertise actually come from? As I said earlier, I've been doing this work since 1969, and the real work of peacekeeping actually started in about '67. It was a very aggressive time for the country, and the social movement of change was occurring all over the country. And what you had were adversaries that at one time were very destructive towards one another, moved to create a common enemy, and that common enemy was the governmental policies that were dictating the oppressive state that most of these communities were held under. So because of that, you had a shift in the thinking process. So many of the gang members who were from that era went into the social service movement and ended up changing the whole dynamic of their thinking process, changed the dynamic of what they were doing, and also that's where your first fundamental community mobilization started. What we did in building the successful template that we have today came from the core of that movement, came from the foundational componentry of what that movement was all about. Between 1969 and about 1976, you had no gang violence in this city, not to the degree that we know. You had minor skirmishes, but gang violence was almost null and void. What happened? What happened around 1972, we had a variety of things happen. We had the social justice movement, which was crushed, number one. We had the start of the prison industrial complex, which was number two. In most of your communities of color, what you had was this acceptance of the imagery of a pimp from the Superfly imagery. So it was okay to not have a principal base in how the family was structured, because pimping was accepted at the time. Then you had the influx of drugs come in and saturate the communities, because most of the economic generators were removed about 1975. In Los Angeles, you had the Goodyear plants, the Firestone plants. All these things were wiped out overnight. So the economic the economic motivator that kept these families afloat was missing in the process. The real gang banging started back around 1980, and that's when you had the major influx of drugs come in because there was no economic sustainability. You had the viciousness because millionaires were being made overnight, and you just had a whole conglomeration of things that happened at the same time. We were in that process. We were working through that process of putting things together in that process. Around 1992, you had the revolts, and then what you had was a real peacekeeping effort identified at that time, because after the revolt of '92, people started to say, okay, there is some need for these peacekeepers on the street because they do some fundamental work, and that moves us up to the point of today. How does intervention work actually work? The concept, again, what we do is when we're in a given community, we look for dysfunctional communities, and then we will assess those communities. We will look for what those communities actually need. We will never go in a community and tell that community what it needs and what it needs to do based on what we see. We always let the community drive the process. So we will sit back, listen, we will assess, and then the community will tell us what we need. Then we will look for fundamental shot callers within that community, individuals who are on the ground and have the expertise and the ability to get people to move in those communities to take different directions in terms of what they do. From there, once we identify these people, we will get the community to validate that they are a positive, a constructive force in that community. Now, because we're on the ground, we also know what these individuals are doing. So it's a dual effort that's combined. Once we select those individuals, the most important thing happens. They have to go through a training process. You have to establish accountability. You have to establish the fact that they operate from a given structure. You have to establish that they do things based on certain fundamental procedures that have been thought out, that have been practiced, etc. Then once you get that community group trained, you get these individuals trained, then you link them to a local and national network of other peacekeepers that they train with, that they communicate with, that they have an ongoing relationship with. So you build a holistic chain from community after community. When we see certain trends coming into a new community, just like Chicago will reach out and say, hey, this is coming towards our way. What have you guys done down in LA to deal with this issue? And vice versa. So you create that connectability, you create those alliances, and now you got people working together in city after city, community after community, etc. Now, what role does the practitioner, does the academician play? You guys play a great role, but I will say this: if you're going to attempt to step in this type of work, this level of work, you've got to be academician, I can't even say it. You've got to be academicians who are practitioner-based. You've got to take that community that you're working with and say, okay, we have some type of expertise to step in here and help this community, but I'm not going to sit up here and define the community. I'm not going to drive that community and tell that community what's in need. I am going to bring my expertise and see how that expertise will play a role in helping the community move forward. The process of change in dysfunctional communities has to be a community-driven process. There's no way around that. Because if it's not, and you only come into that community to support that community or stabilize that community while you are there, you do that community a disservice. You have to be able to bring your expertise and say, how can I fit? What can I do to help you? And then you have to be barefoot in terms of your practitioner approach. You cannot feel the mud on your feet if you never felt it and haven't taken your shoes off. So you have to get down and dirty. You have to ingratiate yourself with the people. You don't want to become the people, but you have to understand the dynamic in which they operate. And then you have to create the ability to work together in unison with those people, bringing all that knowledge together to move a community forward. We don't know what it's going to take to create normality in a given individual. And that's what we're trying to do when we see dysfunctionality. We want to bring them individuals back to a state of normalness, and then we want to get them to where they can function. Once they can function, we want to stabilize that functionality, and then we want to create a mechanism that they can always lean to where they can stay functional. See, this work is a damn science. It's not something that's arbitrary, that's emotionally driven, and that's driven on the sake of, let's go out and just do this as a reaction. It's a process involved. And again, I think that's where the academic field plays a major role in helping to establish what that process looks like. Let me move on. The experiences on the street. How does it affect intervention work? Let me tell you something. Most of us who do this work got so much damn blood on our hands, it's ludicrous. We have seen so much pain. We have seen so much suffering. We have seen so much hurt. We have seen so much, and we still move the process forward. We become so traumatized because we don't know how traumatized we really are. We see so much, we have this turn-off knob. Okay, yeah, I see it, but I got to move forward. And we just move on to the next bloodshed, or we move on to the next crisis, etc. And it goes on and on and on, not realizing the buildup that's happening inside. We have lost so many peacekeepers due to stress, due to the inability to self-heal themselves. You know, I tell you, I'm on my 9 lives. I done gave up 8 of them, all right? I should not even be here. I done been in so much crazy crap that I shouldn't have been in, but we push ourselves because we truly believe we're driven by that passion and drive. We drive the fact that we are supposed to be doing this work. And people think we just run out there and do the work, everything's hunky-dory. Man, it's painful. You walk back home after being in the streets all day and your daughter and your wife is at the door. Yeah, you out there saving the world, but this family needs some damn saving. We don't see you. Where are you at? And this process builds and it goes on and on and on. And that's why we have to be able to assist one another in part of this process. As a society, we've got to assist one another, especially those of us that are out there getting our hands dirty, trying to make some repair, trying to move some things forward. You know, it's funny. No, I'm not even going to tell you that, so I'll leave that alone. The impact of training peacekeepers. What does that process look like? It's not an easy process. It's not an easy process at all, but it's a process that has to happen. You know, when you train people who are 6, 7, 8 feet under, the first thing you got to do is get them back to a state of levelness to where they can operate. And let me tell you, when you're dealing with, and I hate to use the word dysfunctional, I just can't think of a better word. When you're dealing with damaged individuals, it's hard because sometimes you think you get them to a point to where they can operate, and then guess what happens? They go back. They cross back over the line for a variety of reasons. And that's why it's so imperative that you build that internalized structure. You have that componentry that if you can't get it done with that individual, you've got somebody who can. So the process of training, people don't know, for the most part, what true training is. Training is situation-based. Training is situation-specific. Training teaches you skill sets. It teaches you the ability to do something. It teaches you the ability to move. Too many of us confuse training with learning. Learning teaches you broader concepts. It gives you more knowledge. It helps you think broader. But training is situation-specific. When I leave a training venue, I want to leave with certain skill sets. I want to be able to do certain things a certain way based on what the protocol of that training instructed me to do. And this is what we do with our peacekeepers. We design certain tools and methodologies for them to operate from, but we're at the same time working on their thinking process, trying to raise their level of greatness, trying to raise that level of hope, trying to raise that level that they can be functional and they can bring assistance back to those communities that they want to serve. How have I been able to keep doing this work for so long? How have I been able to stay in it for 43 years? Some of the guys got 20 years in. It's amazing. There's been numerous times to where I wanted to put my hands up and run away from this work, but something always draws you back. A killing in the street, a mother at 2 o'clock in the morning who has lost her whole family, a father who doesn't know what to do because he can't take care of his people, a municipality that is seeing so much death and destruction they have no idea, and then more importantly, the fact that you know you've been blessed to have a certain amount of expertise, and can you and will you turn your back on that targeted population in which you serve? And that's an ongoing dynamic we got to face. That's also part of that trauma. That's part of where we have to think, where we have to rationalize, where we got to be around others who can raise us. You can't go in and give somebody 100% if you're only operating at 60. And we operate at 60 so often, it's ludicrous. You know, for the students and for the school, you guys play such an imperative role because you guys, in my opinion, have to create the alliances with some of these individuals who have this hope, who perceive wanting to be great, but don't know how. One thing about the academic arena, it teaches the methodology of how to do things. You know, I was told a long time ago, when you know the whys, the hows become real easy. So if I'm able to understand why I want to do something, then the hows of doing that will follow, and you guys play a major role in that. The book. All I would want from this book, all I would hope that this book would do, would be able to put in place in the people's hands who picked this book up, the ability to move a process forward, the ability to take the work that some of us have started and to be able to progress that work. You know what this book represents? This book is my legacy. I talked to you about a legacy earlier, the fact that all of us will have that legacy and will be remembered by that legacy. This book is my legacy. If nothing else I've done, putting this book together has given the ability for me to at least say, I can go out, I can retire from this work, I can go out and go get me a cup of lemonade and sit back in the recliner for a minute and say, I did something good for the people I wish to serve. And if it does that, I've done my job. I've done what I was meant to do and supposed to do. In terms of all of us, I really want to leave on a word of hope, on a word of inspiration. Look, we need each other. We have to be able to link our hands. We have to be able to unify our expertise. We've got to be able to raise each other. We have got to create the type of alliances, partnerships, collaboration that drives the process of effective change, causatic change, where we see dysfunctionality, whether it be in violence, whether it be in mental health, whether it be in the abilities for communities to grow and better themselves, whether it be in the thinking process of people that want to do damage to one another. I don't care what the process is. If we're going to survive as a society, we have better get serious about the fact that we've got limited time and we've been given limited space to do effective work here. All of us have a destiny that we were brought here to do. We all survived a war when we came out of the womb. We survived billions of sperm cells, and you were the ones that came out. I was the ones that came out. That meant that we were here to do a specific job for a specific reason. And one of the hardest things in life is trying to see what the destiny of what you represent is all about. And when you find that, it is truly a blessing with a dressing and a lesson. I know I found mine in terms of peacekeeping. There's nothing more to me that I could do to create levels of peacekeeping and keeping people safe, saving lives, restoring communities, providing hope, implementing proactive solutions through self-reliance and self-determination. If we can get that done, if I can get that done, if my team can get that done, we will stay in our lane and do just that. All of you play a fundamental role in where we need to go as a society. And as the doctor said so well earlier, You know, when you look at oppression, when you look at resistance, when you look at people who have been marginalized, when you look at people who cannot achieve the level of greatness because they're restricted for whatever reason, what you are going to get is self-destruction and destruction of another sort, to where I will lash out at those who are trying to stop me from moving forward. Violence always has a partner, and that partner is need. When you find a person who is using violence, there's always a need, usually that person, has not been able to acquire. And so all of us together have got to look at the systematic structure we want to use. All of us have got to look at what kind of tools can we put in place. And all of us have to realize that we really cannot stay in our silos to get this work done. We are a dependent society where we depend on each other. And in order for us to move this damn thing forward and create a healthy environment, an environment for our youngsters, for our elders, for us to grow, for us to benefit, for us to achieve the level of a triumph that we are supposed to achieve in this life, we have got to unify, we have got to link, and we have got to put the bigger objective of community survival over everything else that comes to the plate. That would be my challenge to you. Whatever your expertise is, whatever your role is, find someone, find an entity, find an organization where at the end of the day, when you bring your skills to the table, you are going to be able to say, I achieved a better result with what I did and who I worked with. With that said, I had to measure, but it's been a pleasure. I will answer your questions.
No? Okay. Just kidding. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Shantae Thomas. I'm the director for the African American Research and Cultural Center here at UC Santa Cruz. But I definitely want to send a heartfelt thank you to Akil Bashir for definitely sharing his spirit, his energy, his passion. I'm very honored to share the space with yourself as well as the other very prominent gentlemen that spoke earlier about the work that you all are doing. So I think we all should feel fairly fortunate to really have the opportunity to engage with you. And thank you for your call to action. Thank you for the work that you continue to do. And this will not be the last time that you're here. I will just say that. Little plug. But I am going to facilitate the Q&A portion right now. So I believe index cards are being passed around, but I do have a couple of questions. So if you are interested in engaging directly with Akil, feel free to, and there's some folks passing out index cards and they're coming around. You can go ahead and maybe raise your hand if you have a question, and they're going to pass those around, but I do have a couple questions in the interim while you're writing those.
Okay.
All right, so you touched upon this slightly, but maybe you could talk about what was the impetus for the work that you currently do, and how did you know that this was your calling?
When I was in the social movement of the 60s, we had saw so much pain and suffering, destruction, etc., and there were not solutions and answers that were on the table that we felt were equitable to create the systemic change that was needed. And it was almost a natural for me because once I got into the work, once I started doing the work, I came out of the culture. I was a part of the Black Panther Party, proud of it, don't take it back for anything. I was a part of some of the most militant groups, yes. I was a part of some of the most militant groups at the time, and I was running around at 15 carrying a shotgun, which was bigger than me. But I had invested in the concept of change because I was around individuals who told me that part of the role of a man was to make sure my communities were safe, the people in those communities were safe, and that we set the examples. So it was a natural progression of my thinking process, and once I started to do it, the feeling of greatness that I got from it, the feeling of fulfillment that I got from it, I knew that was my job, and it just took off from there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of in addition to the statement that you just made, how does your work inform and/or is it inclusive of some of the social justice movements that we're seeing, kind of taking the Black Panther movement to the next step, specifically those individuals, you know, that are really working towards the Black Lives Movement action?
It parallels almost 1,000%. I think some of the younger movements of today, what really needs to happen is they need that eldership of instruction. They need to know the mistakes we made. They need to know where we hit our head against the wall. We need to instruct them on how to better their operation and how to be inclusive with the people that they are trying to move, change, and alter. You know, one of the things that our young adults really are pained by when it comes to elders like myself is the fact that we have not been there for them. We have not shown them how to move the process forward. I'm generalizing, but you see the same thing on the street. The first thing that comes out of the mouth is, you haven't taught me how to protect myself. You haven't taught me how to achieve my goals. You haven't taught me how to achieve my level of greatness, so why should I listen to you? And I think when you think about the movements, most of your movements were started by individuals, and they were usually started by people within their teens between the ages of 15 and 21. I think it's paramount that we help our younger leaders to be more effective, to be more inclusive, and to clearly understand their objective is to create that systemic change that they're trying to do, and we can assist them in that process.
Thank you. So another question. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about your work overseas, specifically of that in Africa and Asia?
I will, but in going back to that question, I really have to be clear on that last piece because I don't want to be misinterpreted. When we talk about the young adults and them moving the movements forward, let's be clear as elders, the movement is theirs. It is not ours. And far too often, we want to step in and take a control or leadership role in their movement. No, the dynamic of what they're up against and what they're doing is different than what we were doing. Our society is going to be defined in the next 5, 10, 15 years by our younger adults, by many of the students we see in here. And this is my challenge to the students. What you want to see, what you want to be, what you want this society to look like in the next 10 years is on you. You are going to have to step up, you are going to have to take charge, and you are going to have to demand what you want from the powers to be and what you want that to look like. You have that right. When they see you coming, the ground should shake. They should know you have arrived because it is your time to take your role, to do what you need to do with what you are going to have to live with in the next 10 to 15 years. And you all got the ability to do that. So don't let anybody define the reality in which you operate from. Listen to those that can help you refine and move your process forward, but you have to take the lead on this because it belongs to you. I'm gonna be gone. I know I ain't gonna be running around here no 100 years old talking about, yeah, let's do it. No, I'm gonna be out of here. But we will help you do anything you want to do. In the work overseas, one of the things we clearly understood, and let me tell you something, somebody who really has been in a learning process for a time, there's a saying, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. See, I thought I was pretty tough and knew a lot because I was in social movements, I was in certain dynamics at a very early age, I was around mentors that was 10, 15 years older than me, so I thought I was pretty equipped. I didn't realize how unequipped I was until I really started doing my national and international travels. Because when I went on an international scope, I saw things were diametrically opposite of what my comfort zone was. And then I had to try to figure out, okay, how do I engage this thing? From the perspective of violence intervention, from the perspective of hostility abatement, I had to try to find common denominators in these different regions that were similar to the local dysfunctionality that we saw. And then from those common denominators, we had to say, okay, what are our reference points with these common denominators? These common denominators are our start point. So when we go into any dysfunctional community, the first thing we do, we know there are certain commonalities. We know that there are certain things that are prevalent in every besieged community. So at least we can go in that community and start. So I don't go into the Asian community, the African community, the different communities we go in and look at them per se differently. I look at, okay, what is in common with what I have seen before? And let's see, because there are certain things that have been done with those commonalities, certain structures have been built, we have the ability to come in and say, we have some start points for you to look at. And then from there, obviously, we build out. I like to put it like this. This might be an easier diagram to understand. All of us in here have skeletons. We all have skeletons. We are going to have certain things that are the foundational piece for the body. This is our blueprint. Now, what's different is our skin, is our muscles. Some are big, some are white, some are black, some are flabby, some are tight. And that's how you have to look at the community. We know there are certain commonalities, but now once we step into that community, what does that skin look like? What is the uniqueness that that community brings to the table that we are going to have to engage if we want to create effective change in that community? And so the international piece allows me to create those commonalities and put those pieces together, build those reference points, and then at least we're ahead of the game because we're going in these communities not having to start everything from the ground up.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about the saliency of the Black-Brown Coalition and how it's imperative for communities to build coalition and solidarity?
I'm glad you did talk about and brought that up. I think the anomaly here is that there's been a misperception. There's been a misperception that the Black-Brown community has not been in alliance for so many years. When we look at the slave trade, the Underground Railroad ended in Mexico, and so many of the slaves were freed because Mexico allowed the slaves to come into Mexico and they were not returned to the United States. You look at the African presence all through Mexico, you'll see massive heads symbolizing the African culture and what the Latino componentry has learned from that culture. So we always had that unification. Back in the day, when I was in the Panthers, our closest allies was the Brown Berets. They were tight. We worked everything with them. We worked hand in hand. And I think the commonalities with so many of the entities in the Black and Brown community propels us to have to work together because we see so much of the same dynamics which cause the dysfunctionality in our community. One of the myths and how the myths have occurred is that most of your immigrants your Latino immigrants usually traditionally move into black neighborhoods. And what was going on, especially with the gang environment, Latino gangs are more family oriented, whereas your black gangs are more economically oriented. So when the Latino families started to move into the black neighborhoods, they impeded the black gang members' ability to make their money. And that created the initial strife between the individuals, which later grew into this misinterpretation of the hate that you see some of the younger individuals have for each other. But I will not only say the Black-Brown coalition, there has to be a Black-Brown coalition if we're truly going to change the dynamics in the communities of color. But we also have to build that unison with like-minded whites, with like-minded Asians, with like-minded individuals. And I think that's our core key to latch on with. I want to work with like-minded individuals. I don't give a damn where the hell you come from and what you look like. If you are serious about making cosmetic change in a community, you got my vote, and we can go and we can work together. Yes.
Do you believe there are specific roles for men and women to play in healing our communities?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Do you believe there are specific roles for men and women to play in healing our communities?
I definitely feel that there, look, let me put it to you like this. You know, I have 2 daughters. My oldest daughter is 36 and my youngest is 25. And I consider myself an outstanding father. I've been married to my wife for 41 years. But let me tell you this. If I was to raise my daughters without my wife, they would be running around with boots on, with the black stuff on their face, talking about, let's go take it, because that's the mentality that me as a father and I come from. So I say that to say there is a definite balance. We have to respect the character. We have to respect how best can I say this? What each of the different entities bring to the table. There are certain things I could never duplicate and do as good as a woman. There are certain things a woman could never duplicate and do as good as me. But together we are unstoppable because we can break down walls. And this is how we have to start thinking about the process. Each of us has a value in us, and each of those those entities play an imperative role on moving the community together. So I would say there has to be a unification. There has to be a paralleling of the women and men if we are truly, sincerely talking about doing anything constructively and victoriously for this society.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Akhil, what do you personally think about the implementation of education in prisons? It has proven to be effective considering the success the prison debate team had against Harvard Law.
I think education in the prison is so imperative, but I will qualify by saying the right type of education. Why do you think so many young people drop out of the educational system? Why do you think so many people, and especially people of color, don't want to be involved in that system? Because the current educational system doesn't teach them enough to give them the tools to be successful and achieve their greatness. Yes, we need fundamentals. We need the 3 R's. That's obvious. But I have to, if I am going to align with an educational process, if I am going to align with a certain degree of input coming into my mindset, that input has got to make me more effective. I've got to see if using that input and putting that input into practice, that input is going to take me to another level where I can emphatically say that input is going to make me be better and achieve the goals I want. And that is not going on in the educational system today. Let me pull back on that. I won't say it's not going on. I say it's not going on enough in most of your in most of your educational institutions. When you teach people education, you have got to give them the skill sets that are going to make them be successful and effective in terms of their realm, their normality, not the normality you want to see them in. So the prison educational system has to be taught from the perspective of the individual prisoner and his mindset, not from an exterior mindset. What does that prisoner need? What is their thinking process? What are the challenges that individual is up against? And then from there, you build the educational format based on providing the tools that is going to create effective change in helping that individual navigate through and out of that system. Boy, it sounds like I'm bringing my soapbox out, huh? Let me tuck it back under there.
No, let me get it back. You're good. So maybe if you can go a little bit more into detail, this question specifically wants to know what students can do to make a change and make an impact comparable to that of what your group is currently doing.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, students play such a fundamental role. Look, you guys are the lifeblood. And I seriously mean that. You guys are the rechargers and the regenerators. I'm sure every professor in here would love to see you match their capability at teaching and surpass them if you can. You guys are the ones that give people like me energy to keep on going. And I think you have to use that energy and that zeal, number one, to push us and get the most out of us that you can. And then more importantly, because of your age, set the example for others of like minds to be able to follow a mode, to be able to follow a process. Most of our inability to be successful in society, most individuals' inability to be successful is usually because they don't have a blueprint. They don't have a template. You know, it's like either you a wandering generality or a meaningful Pacific. We've got to give the individuals the ability to be able to focus and stay focused on a given objective at the end of the day. You guys do that, the students do that, because one of the things, again, where I do applaud the academic venue is that it creates those abilities to build systems. Systems are what deal with challenges. When you can put a system in place to counterbalance a challenge, then you've got something that is going to change the end result of that. And I think as students, you guys have that passion, for the sake of repeating myself, that zeal, you have that energy, you have that capability, but a word of caution. And this is a big word of caution. The people you want to serve, the people you want to educate, you've got to go in there as equals. Don't go in there putting the people on a subservient level and think because you have acquired a knowledge to raise you to another level that you are privileged to bring that knowledge to the people you serve. They can pick that up like that because they have been so misused, abused, pimped, and processed. They know when people are coming with game. So you come in there with the realness, and I'll tell you, you coming back to a community, whether it's dysfunctional or not, but you coming back to serve, people seeing you in their environment to make them better, you will gain some of the most productive and long-term allies that you can ever have in life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you referenced Pimp, and I automatically thought about K-Dot and his most recent album, How to Pimp a Butterfly. So this question actually is a perfect caveat. How do you think the glamorization of gang lifestyle in hip-hop influences individuals? Do you think there are any artists or rappers who uplift the youth in a positive way?
I think it's very few rappers that uplift. And let me ask you first part of that question. How do I think it affects the youngsters? I say it's probably the most paramount thing that affects those youngsters. Look, thoughts are things. About the only thing we control is the input of thoughts coming in our mind. Everything that comes in, everything goes in, whether you want it to or not, and then it logs somewhere in some file in the back of your mind. Okay? If I am fed a diet of perpetual hate, if I'm fed a diet of perpetual destruction, if I am fed ongoingly a diet that is canceristic, that I know at the end of the day is going to cause some form of self-destruction, what do you expect my end result to be when you see me manifesting all this that I have brought to the table? I think it's a major responsibility on the rapper's part, and when certain things are brought to the table from the rap mentality. I tell the younger children that I deal with all the time, look, if it's not moving you closer to your goal, if it's not making you closer to where you want to be, you need to distance yourself from it. I tell them all the time, everything counts. There is no middle ground. Everything counts. Everything that you do is going to amount to a bigger and better, I wouldn't say better, it's going to amount to a bitter indecision at the end of the day. So everything you do, the way you look, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you move, what you listen to, how you position yourself is going to amount to an end result of something in your life. And because of all the negativity, just on GP, let's forget about the rap, let's forget about all the social media. Most children have enough negativity. I think by the time the average young adult reaches 18, they have been told no more than 800,000 times in their life. So we got to think about what those dynamics are. Our young adults are up against enough when it comes to the inability to move themselves forward. We need to be coupling them with any and everything that's going to possibly give them the capability of seeing better, of being better, of doing better, and being able to become strategic thinkers and moving through a process at the end of the day that's going to make them and the people that are with them better. So I take most of your rappers to the woodshed and give them a lesson.
So if someone gave you a magic wand or some sort of magic elixir and you had the opportunity to remedy or reconcile or repair some sort of harm or hurt, what would it be? You only get one thing.
Ooh. You got to run that by me again.
You have the opportunity to fix or repair or reconcile or allow for some sort of resolve, but it's just maybe one concept, one theme, one topic, I don't know. What would it be? Someone says, here, Akil, you have the opportunity to fix X. But you only get one. What would it be?
Do I get more than one word? Can I say it in more than one word?
Yeah, no, you definitely just one concept, one.
Okay. I would say provide hope. Just that simple. Because if I can get an individual to hope, if I can get an individual to feel that things will be better, that things will change, that I do not have to be here, that I do not have to stay here, that if I fall on my back, because if I can look up, I can get up. If I can just get you to think at the end of the day that something will always be better for you if you keep pushing, I've done my job.
What strategies can be done in a school setting to reach communities earlier? And they didn't specify K through 12 or the academy, just school settings.
A coalition of community members to realize that they need to be in the planning process of how that school operates, what that school teaches, and how that school functions. The school system should basically be echoing or paralleling what hopefully is being taught from the home. So if we can get parents to define what they want into that educational process, but again, with that defining, it's going to take a certain level of responsibility because those parents are going to have to realize they're going to have to sacrifice some of their time, some of their energy. Far too often, we drop our children off at school and give that school the full reign to educate our child in any way they want. And you can't be mad at the end of the day for whatever that school puts on board if you haven't given that school any instruction. So I would, as a parent group, if I had my children in a certain school, I would try to create a alliance of parents that want certain things to happen, and then I would take it to that school structure, to that school system, and say, we are willing to work with you. This is what we're looking for in the outcome of our children. We will help you get to that process. Let's work together to get it done.
Okay. Thank you. And you talked about this a little early, but maybe if you can expand a little bit more. What do you do to sustain yourself? Do you have a sense of work-life balance? What is your self-care regimen? Because the work is hard and it's fatiguing, but you're still here.
Yeah.
Clearly you're resilient, but is there something specific that you do to fulfill, I don't know, your spirit?
Yeah. You say, I'm still here, but if I took this coat off, you'd probably see more lashes on my back because most of us in this type of work, we're broken individuals. I'm fortunate because I have surrounded myself with like-minded individuals who are ingratiated in the work, who understand the work, who can lift me up when I'm down. I have a family support mechanism. I have an extreme health regime. I've been a vegetarian for 25 years. I work out 5 times a week. it's a lot of disciplinary tools that I use, but I've got to be honest with you. Even saying all that and with all that on board, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I am a fractured individual. You know, I am a traumatized individual, and I think the only saving grace is the fact that I've been able to ignore or hide my trauma from myself. You know, I tried walking on water last week and got all wet. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, we just keep pushing, we keep moving forward. But I can't really even answer that question, because even with all that I do, and I know the team speaks, I can speak for the team. Some days we're operating at 100%. Other days it's like, why the hell am I getting out of bed? But we got to still push ourselves and move ourselves forward. And even those of us that look like we have everything in place, that we are operating on 100%, that everything's good, all of us, every one of us in this room have a certain degree of trauma that we're dealing with, some more greater than others. But we are traumatized people. Some of us are being able to handle it better. Some of us are in better economic conditions so we can buffer it better. But as a society, we are traumatized. We wouldn't see what we're seeing every day happen in society if that trauma wasn't there. People are not going out and killing people with mass killing sprees, putting their babies in microwaves, having wars across the world if there wasn't a massive degree of trauma involved. And we, those of us that have some semblance of sanity, we are going to have to start looking at, can we affect some type of alteration in this trauma? We might not be able to do it on a larger scale. Can we do it on a mini scale? That's what we have done with the peacekeeping effort of comprehensive gang intervention. We said we're going to isolate in this little area and try to create an eradication of some of the trauma that's going on. Unfortunately for us, or maybe I should say fortunately, we were so effective that it branched out into so many other areas. But we have got to look at, we have a responsibility in trying to alter the trauma that we see. Look, all of us in life, because we've been given a space on this earth, we have got to do something to give back to balance the rent that we should be paying for allowing to be on this earth. We are not here just to be here to acquire what we want and set ourselves off into the sunset. We have got to put back in. If we are truly going to look at a betterment in this society, everything operates on balance. The Chinese concept of yin and yang is so imperative. For every action, there is an equal and opposing reaction. So we all have a responsibility to the society and to ourselves to give something back. I don't care how you do it and what way you do it, but we all have got to put something back into the pot because we're taking out so much.
Well, with that.
Yes. I just want to say this to all of you. Like I said, I got a lot of love for the school, for Nande, for all the people that have been involved, for the doctor, etc. Anything that we can do to assist you in the process, to help you, we are here to work with you. We are here to be here for you. That's how we operate. So a lot of love and respect. You guys got us. You're part of our family, and we want to be part of yours. Fair enough?
So again, a very sincere thank you. A pure amount of gratitude for Akil to share his words, his expertise, his wisdom, and to really underscore and outline the framework and blueprint for what we all can do to continue to heal and help. I do want to bring attention to the fact that Akil is going to do a book signing, so feel free to pick up the blueprints and the legacy that he is leaving behind with us. And thank you all for being here on this rainy Thursday.